Mr. Grayson.
Mr. Grayson is recognized for 4 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I have good news. The good news is this. We won the war in Afghanistan. Now, it happened a while ago, so I may be the only person who actually remembers this. But after the 9/11 attack, within 3 months, we had expelled the Taliban government, and we did so with the use of only 1,000 U.S. Special Forces troops. Within 4 months, we had expelled al-Qaeda from Afghanistan, and if you don't believe me about that, you can listen to General Petraeus, who said a year ago that al-Qaeda isn't in Afghanistan anymore. I have more good news about Iraq. The news is we won. We won the war in Iraq years and years ago. Facing the fourth largest army in the entire world, we swept through Iraq, and within 3 weeks we had deposed the Saddam Hussein government. We won. Now we can go home. In fact, we could have gone home a long time ago. What's happening now in Afghanistan, what's happening now in Iraq, you can't even call it a war. It's a foreign occupation. And you could read the Constitution from beginning to end, and you'll find nothing in the Constitution that permits or authorizes a foreign occupation, much less one that goes on for almost a decade. We simply can't afford these wars anymore, both in the price of money and in the price of blood. I'd like to call your attention to a report in the New England Journal of Medicine, dated January 31, 2008. This report says that 15% of all the troops that served in Iraq returned with permanent brain damage. That's right, permanent brain damage. Here's some of the symptoms described. A loss of consciousness, general poor health, missed work days, medical visits, and a high number of somatic and post-concussive symptoms. Later on in the report, on page 459, this report says, in this study, nearly 15% of the soldiers reported an injury during deployment that involved a loss of consciousness or altered mental state. These soldiers, defined as having what is euphemistically referred to as mild traumatic brain injury, were significantly more likely to report high combat exposure and a blast mechanism of injury than were the 17% of soldiers who reported other injuries. So, Mr. President, when you say that you're sending 50,000 more to Afghanistan, what you're really saying is that you are condemning 7,500 young Americans to live for the rest of their lives with brain damage. That's what you're really saying. And beyond that, we've spent over $3 trillion on the war in Iraq. That's over $10,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country, over $70,000 for my family of 7. And for what? What have we accomplished in 2010 that we could not have accomplished in 2009 or 2008 or 2007 or 2006? In fact, what have you heard from the other side today that they couldn't have said back then and they'll want to say next year and the year after that? Now think about this. Our total national wealth is only $50 trillion. We've spent $3 trillion, 6% of that on the war in Iraq. That kind of economic damage is something that could not have possibly been accomplished by al-Qaeda himself. Osama bin Laden on his best day couldn't have done anything like that. He would have had to vaporize all of New England to come close. Listen, we are the most powerful nation on earth. Nobody can force us out of Iraq. Nobody can force us out of Afghanistan. We have to make that decision ourselves. But remember, we need not only strength, but we need wisdom. We need to know that the worst things that happen to us as a country are the things that we do to ourselves, including these 2 wars. Thank you very much.
Gentleman's time has expired.